Part 3. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 21. Sci-fi stood at the front of the warship as always, and under the calm exterior, his inner thoughts were still churning. Originally, he was on his way to find Arthur, but suddenly he was called back by a phone call from Cyborg. But when he learned the ins and outs of the matter, he couldn't help but be shocked by Arthur's audacity. First robbed the heavenly gold, and now kidnapped the celestial dragons. Sci-fi felt that Arthur should really be glad that most of the Navy's combat power was pinned down by the Rock's pirates. Otherwise, he wouldn't be the only one who came over this time. Lord Mokovacs. Next to Sci-fi, Druzo saw the Mokovac saint tied to the stern of the boat. The whole person floated on the surface of the sea like a dead corpse, swaying back and forth with the wind. This made Druzo's face pale with fright. It had only been a little more than a day, and it would not have been. "We're meeting again, Sci-fi." The white dragon came to a slow halt, and Arthur appeared on the deck, glancing at Druzo and fixing his gaze on Sci-fi. "I didn't expect our second meeting to be under such circumstances." Sci-fi clenched the side of the ship tightly with both hands, to restrain the impulse in his heart. This time when he went out, Gang Gukong specially explained that this time it was mainly to save the Tianlong people, and he should not start a conflict without authorization. Otherwise, with Sci-fi's temper, he will see Arthur fight first. "What have you done to the Saint Mokovaki?" Druzo couldn't help but ask out loud. If Mokovaki St had any 3 long and 2 short, then all this would be meaningless. "Don't worry, you can't die." Arthur tugged at the rope and could see a slit open in Mokovaki's closed eyes. "Lord Mokovac, we'll come to your rescue right away." Seeing that Mokovac was fine, Druzo breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Arthur. "We've already brought 10 billion here, hurry up and release the Saint of Mokovacs." As Druzo spoke, his companion behind him brought out 4 large boxes. One by one opened, with the majority of gold, in addition to the full Bailey. "These add up to definitely enough for 10 billion Baileys." Seeing the money, the corners of Druzo's eyes twitched in pain. Naturally, it was impossible for Steelbone to give him all the ransom, so he had to take out all his belongings. "Don't worry, I'm a very honest person," Arthur said with a wave of his right hand, and between it and the opposite warship, an icy road condensed out. Arthur grabbed Mokovacs and tossed it to Druzo, brushing the large boxes with his hands. In the shocked eyes of everyone, the wealth in the box disappeared out of thin air. "Very good, then I won't send it slowly." A waste Draco man was exchanged for 10 billion Bailey, which was a sure profit for Arthur, and he returned to the White Dragon with great satisfaction. Sci-fi and Druzo could only watch. Mokovaki is next to him. Even if he does it, they will have a lot of scruples, and if they are caught by the other party again, it will be troublesome. "Quick, hurry up and get the Saint Mokovac into the cabin, prepare the food, doctor, quickly." Seeing the dying appearance of Mokovacs, everyone on the warship instantly became busy. And at the same time the Rock's pirates. This time they split up in 2 ways, most of them to attract the attention of the Navy, and a few others, led by Lox, rounded the blockade. Go and find their target, the Draconians. It is conceivable that under this mental calculation or unintentional, coupled with the fact that the Draconians have always been arrogant, the probability of being caught by Lox is very high. With the cruelty of Lox, the captured Draco people will definitely be more than lucky. The outcome of this matter will be postponed for a few more days. Arthur, who inspired Lox, is lying on the couch at the moment, enjoying the services of Rita and May to the fullest. "May, you can use this pistol for self-defense." Looking at the bud clothes in front of him, who was carefully picking out the watermelon seeds, the light in Arthur's hand flashed, and a dark blue pistol appeared. Mei Yi's current strength is naturally no problem against those ordinary pirates, but if she encounters those top ones, I'm afraid she will not be able to do it. To be on the safe side, Arthur spent 3 billion from the store to buy May a self-defense pistol. Don't look at the pistol's size is the same as normal, but the energy contained in it is unimaginable. A bullet is worth 100 million and can burst out with the same power as a missile. Thank you, Captain. Mei Yi took the pistol and put it away after stroking it recently. That's good, Captain. Rita said, her tone was quite sour, and at the same time, the strength of her hands rubbing her shoulders slowly increased. Of course, Rita, I have a gift for you. Arthur took out a box very interestingly, opened it gently, and there was a dark blue diamond necklace inside. The small necklace seems to contain the entire universe, and there is a deep beauty. Rita, this necklace is called the heart of the universe, for you. With Rita's current combat power, no matter how many tools there are, it is only an auxiliary role. In this case, it is better to give some trinkets that girls like. Can the captain help Rita put it on? Rita came up to Arthur and lifted her hair, revealing her smooth neck. Happy to help you. Mei Yi next to her looked at the scene and was very envious. Girl, of course, she likes these shiny things. But she also understands Arthur's intention in giving her a pistol. I made up my mind that I must make my strength stronger as soon as possible, so that if I give myself a gift, I can ask the captain to help put it on. How's the captain going, is it good looking? Rita looked down at the dark blue diamond with a big smile on her face. Looks good, Rita looks good no matter what she brings. Late at night, when Arthur was sleepless and tossing and turning, a figure walked softly. Captain, Rita asked May to come over. Some trembling can also be heard in the slight sound. And just then, the sea welcomed a new guest. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, return captain. Chapter 22. Early morning. Looking at Mei Yi, who was still frowning slightly, Arthur smiled and reached out to pull away the strands of hair stuck to her cheeks. Perhaps feeling the touch on her cheeks, Mei Yi opened her eyes at the same time. Woke you up, Mei Yi, it's still early, you can continue to rest. No need for the captain, Mei Yi has nothing to do, after all, the captain is so gentle and... Mei lowered her head a little embarrassed as she spoke. Mei, you better rest for a while, the captain is not gentle, but I know better than you. The door opened, and Rita walked in with 2 bowls of lotus seed soup. It's specially prepared for you, and it can replenish some vitality. Thank you, Sister Rita. Mei Yi sat up, took the lotus seed soup handed over by Rita, and took a shallow sip. It's delicious, Captain, would you like a sip? Mei Yi said as she picked up the spoon and handed it to Arthur's mouth. Yes, Rita's craft is good again. The taste is sweet and not greasy, and it is a wonderful treat to go down the throat. Of course. Rita gave a smug smile. A hearty breakfast is ready, I'll go and wait for you below. With that, Rita turned to leave, and the room fell silent. Arthur and May looked at each other, staring wide-eyed. After a long time, Mei Yi lowered her head and fiddled with her long hair and took the lead in speaking. Captain, can you go out first? The sound is like that of a thin mosquito. Although there has been a breakthrough in the relationship between the two, Mei Yi still feels very embarrassed at the moment. It's all this time, what are you still shy? Arthur shrugged his shoulders helplessly, but he still cleaned up and walked out of the room, closing the door very considerately. Will. It wasn't until she was the only one left in the whole room that Mei Yi breathed a sigh of relief and calmed down her nervous mood. Standing up slowly, as if the wound was touched, the good-looking brows couldn't help frowning, and walked to a large mirror. Looking at herself in the mirror, gently brushing the red marks on her body, Mei Yi didn't know what she remembered, and the corners of her mouth hooked up a happy smile. And at this time outside the room. What's the matter, Captain, it's really not a gentleman for you to come out alone. Rita leaned back on the couch, smiling like a little fox. After all, girls are thin-skinned, and there is no way to do it. Arthur spread his hands and walked to the table and sat down. After eating so much in the morning, aren't you afraid that I will have too much energy? Wouldn't that be better, Captain? In the middle of Arthur and Rita's frolicking, Mei walks over wearing a white t-shirt. Come, Mei, this is specially prepared for you by Rita. Thank you, Captain, thank you Rita. Oh. Don't be so polite. Arthur was enjoying a hearty breakfast on his side, and on the other side, Mokovaki Saint had finally woken up. The whole body is sore and weak, as if there are thousands of ants biting all over the body. After a day of soaking in the water, the waves that gently swell over are weighing thousands of pounds. How can the weak physique of the celestial dragon people withstand it? I must be sure to kill them. Lying on the gorgeous bed, Mokovac gritted his teeth with a look of resentment. For ordinary people, a day of rest can restore their original state, but Mokovaki Saint can barely get out of bed after lying for 3 days. The whereabouts of that group of people have not been found. Mokovac Saint looked at Xavier in front of him. Xavier, who is now the new captain of CP0, as for Druzzo, demoted him to slavery at the first moment of his awakening in Mokovacs. To make him suffer so much is a dereliction of duty on the part of Druzzo. Found is found, but Xavier spoke cautiously, and he didn't dare to continue to provoke Mokovacs. Just what? All I ask now is that you take them back and make them slaves. A roar from the Mokovac Saint sent Xavier to his knees. The words that were about to be said were quickly swallowed. Yes, yes, my subordinates will do it. Nodding his head, he crawled out of the room. Damn, what a bunch of shit. Mokovac scolded and went to inspect his territory in a huff. He wants to find someone to vent the anger he is holding in his stomach. Walking on the streets, seeing the people on both sides who knelt on the ground and didn't dare to lift their heads, Mokovac Saint finally regained a little pride in being a Draconian. Think of being soaked in the sea all day, receiving the baptism of the waves all the time, and that kind of days are like years. Suddenly, Mokovac noticed that the kneeling body of a person moved, and his face changed instantly. Capture him as a slave. The surrounding guards immediately walked over to the man Mokovac was pointing at, and walked to the side despite his cries and begs for mercy. Mokovac tilted his head. The feeling of being in control of everything made the faint pain in his body much less. After inspecting most of the territory, the Mokovac Saint has returned to its original appearance. He was thinking about how to punish Arthur if he caught him. Suddenly, several people appeared in front of him. The sheer size of his body shrouded him in shadow. Who are you? When you see me, you don't kneel, and you take them into slavery. Mokovac waved his hand, but the guards on either side were pale. Lo, Lox. A cry as if a duck's throat was pinched resounded all around. Hey, hey. It's really good luck, someone just came to the door. Lox smiled, revealing a hideous expression, and with a wave of his big hand, he directly held Mokovac Saint in his hand like a chicken. Let go of the Holy Lord Mokovac. Lox's might was very strong, but the Mokovac Saint was a little damaged, and they could only follow the funeral, so they mustered up the courage to shout. Huh! His eyes were cold, and the overlord color on his body burst out. Brush. One by one, the guards fainted and fell to the ground. With a burst of rampant laughter, Lox grabbed Mokovac and left. The tragic Mokovac Saint, who had just been rescued from Arthur's hands, fell into the hands of Lox again. It is conceivable that Lox will never be as gentle as Arthur. For the Mokovac Saint, we can only pray for him as well. Send a contract today and ask for a wave of data. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 23. On the endless sea, the sound of artillery fire is endless. Dozens of warships are besieging more than a dozen pirate ships led by the Rocks pirates. The two are at war with each other, each with its own damage. No, why hasn't Locks shown up for so many days? Looking at the pirate ship in front of him, a bad premonition suddenly appeared in Sengoku's heart. Carp, what do you think? It's indeed a little strange, since the last encirclement and suppression, the Locks pirates have not cultivated their self-cultivation, and now they haven't seen Locks for 2 days. You must know that Locks is the soul of the Rocks pirates. In previous battles, Locks had always taken the lead, posing a great threat to their navy. The situation is clearly not normal. Could it be that Locks is playing some kind of machina? Sengoku couldn't help but think about it, and his brows furrowed deeply. Blue 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 blue. At this moment, the phone bug on Sengoku's arm suddenly rang. What happened? Locks, it's Locks, he's behind us, ahh. Hurried and short, mixed with a screaming voice, Carp and Sengoku glanced at each other, and the expressions on their faces were very ugly. Ha ha ha, I'm back. Rampant laughter, mixed with the domineering they were familiar with, suddenly covered the sea. Sneaked around behind us. Sengoku's fists clenched, and he felt guilty of his negligence in his deployment. Wait. In Locke's hands. Once again, a hint of disbelief came from the phone bug. Eh. Rita, Mei, hurry up and come out, big news. On this sea, the daily newspaper can let Arthur know what is happening outside. At a certain time, I took the newspaper handed over by the newspaper delivery gull, flipped through it casually, and was instantly attracted by the headline in front of me. The Rocks pirates are bold enough to kidnap the Draconians. This headline occupies a fifth of the entire newspaper's space. What's going on, Captain? Rita and May walked out of the cabin one after another. Look at the newspapers. The eyes of the three people were focused on the newspaper at the same time. About half a day ago, an unprecedented battle broke out between the Navy and the Rocks pirates on the sea. The reason was that Locks kidnapped the Draconians and dismembered the Morkovaks in front of all the navies and threw them into the sea to feed the fish. This move not only gave the Navy a disgrace, but also slapped the world government in the mouth. In the face of Locke's provocation, the Navy also burst into a powerful combat force, and this battle lasted for several hours. At the same time, it also made the world realize the combat power of Iron Fist Carp and the warring states of Buddha. The two faced off against Locks, and the entire island was divided into 3 in the battle. In addition, the other members of the Rocks pirates also performed well. For example, Charlotte Lingling's strong defense makes her rampage like a humanoid tank, and people turn on their backs wherever they pass. Kaido and Shiki were even more besieged by hundreds of navies, and they did not fall behind at all. Edward the Whitebeard was holding a Kanjiun cut, and he was also fierce and abnormal in the midst of the navy's encirclement. The battle ended in defeat. Whether it is the Rocks pirates or the Navy, they have suffered heavy losses in this battle, and I am afraid that a relatively large battle will not break out in a short period of time. This Tianlong man is really unlucky, it's only been a few days, and he died in Huangquan. Rita shook her head slightly, he didn't feel pity at all for what happened to Mokovaki Saint. For such a long time in this world, the various behaviors of the celestial dragon people have naturally been known. According to Rita's words, such a person is a major obstacle to the development of the world, and it is best to die. This Rocks pirates are very strong, and they have not fallen behind in several naval battles. Miai's gaze revealed solemnity. According to what Rita told her, the Navy can be said to maintain order on the sea. However, such an existence is held back by the Rocks pirates. It is enough to prove the strength of the Rocks pirates, which are comparable to the entire navy in their own right. I'm afraid the world government will not be able to sit still. The contents of the newspaper were only a rough summary, but with these few strokes, Arthur could already imagine the tragedy of the war at that time. The main thing is that Locks killed the Draconians. Although they are a bunch of waste, behind them stands the world government. And only a madman like Locks does not think about any consequences. Captain, do you think the Rocks pirates will be wiped out by the Navy? Rita suddenly asks Arthur such a question. It shouldn't be in the short term. After all, the strength of the Rocks pirates is obvious to all, but it won't be known for sure after a long time. In terms of top-notch combat power alone, Arthur felt that the Locks pirates were superior. However, the Navy is outnumbered, and reinforcements can be continuously sent. In the long run, the Rocks pirates will inevitably fall into a disadvantage. The main thing is the thought of Locks. Conquer the world. If it is only strong and entrenched on one side, the Navy will only be on alert at most, and will not attack on a large scale and increase casualties. In the face of Locke's ambition to conquer the world government will certainly not remain silent. I'm afraid the real battle will follow. We also need to be prepared to avoid being hurt by the storm that follows. What are you going to do? Compared to Mei Yi's curiosity, Rita showed a look of understanding in her eyes. Is this one? Let's talk as we go. With a mysterious expression, Arthur stopped Mei by the waist and slowly walked towards the cabin. I feel that the contract was sent a little early, and no one will look at it, so the flowers moved a little, and I was so panicked. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, return captain. Chapter 24. The medical room of the Navy headquarters. You two are really desperate, so badly injured. Tsuru looked at Carp and Sengoku sitting on the bed, with some helplessness on his face. The three of them are often together, and Tsuru knows the personalities of the two of them very well. What is this injury? 2 or 3 days will be fine. Carp's upper body was covered in bandages, and as he spoke, he seemed to show Tsuru that he was fine, and his right arm was pulling the wound, and he grinned in pain. Seeing Sengoku and Tsuru's expressions as if they were looking at idiots, Carp scratched his head innocently, and the expression on his face gradually became solemn. The strength of this Locks is really strong, and we are 2 against 1 to fight him equally. Although the pursuit has been for such a long time, there is only this time when the real fight is due. This is. At the mention of Locks, Sengoku's face gradually became solemn, and he reached out to cover his chest. A long, slender wound was left by Locks. Powerful and ambitious, this is a dangerous figure. Tsuru, do you have any information about the Rocks pirates now? For the Rocks pirates, Sengoku has always been uneasy. In case they were to be killed again, without him and Carp in charge, those navies would probably be overwhelmed. Since the battle with you, the Rocks pirates have also disappeared, and they should not appear anytime soon. Hearing Tsuru's answer, Sengoku nodded. Although the kid at Locks is very strong, it is impossible for the two of us to be attacked so many times unharmed, and now he is probably lying on the bed. Carp said slowly. Be cautious, Locks is a madman, and no one can guess what he's going to do next. Sengoku said and got up from the bed. What are you going to do? If you're hurt, you have to rest. Tsuru's brow furrowed. Now is not the time to sit back in bed. Yes, it's nothing to us. Carp also got up from the hospital bed and slowly moved his body. It's really unsettling. The crane didn't say anything more, and could only sigh helplessly. Locks, who is still being remembered by Carp and Sengoku, is standing on the seaside and looking into the distance at the moment. The naked upper body, the traces of wounds are only done simply. Those two naval. In his mind, the image of the battle with Carp and Sengoku flashed, and the expression on his face gradually became solemn, and then the corners of his mouth hooked up a smile, which gradually enlarged. It's interesting, that's interesting. It seems that the Navy is not all a bunch of garbage. The sea breeze blew, and Locke's long hair fluttered like a demon from the abyss. The red eyes had a bloodthirsty glow. And in the marshal's room of the Navy headquarters, Steel Bold received an order from the world government. Destroy the Rocks pirates at all costs. Things have finally reached a point of no return. Cyborg paced back and forth in the room, placing the instructions in his hand on the table, and picking up the phone bug. Carp, Sengoku, you two come to me. The all-out encirclement and suppression of the Rocks pirates completely kicked off today. Inside the White Dragon, Arthur sat on the couch and looked at the rewards drawn from the system interface in front of him. Thunderbolt Bud Fragment A35. All shards, what's going on? Not only did Arthur fall into deep contemplation, but as a result, the chaotic brain didn't give him any useful hints. Upgrading from A rank to S rank also requires 30 character shards, and Arthur naturally uses them immediately. Open the Valkyrie warehouse and find Mei, 35/30ths, upgradable. Without hesitation, I clicked on it, and the whole interface suddenly changed. 5/50ths. It seems that the next promotion, you will need 50 character shards. Captain, Mei felt the power surging from her body. Next to him, Mei Yi's surprised voice came, and when Arthur turned his head to look, a figure rushed straight in. How does it feel? Looking at Mei Yi with a look of joy on her face, Arthur felt the same way. This feeling of gradually becoming stronger and having power is really addictive. Very well, thank you, Captain. Mei Yi was a little surprised, and she was already a little uncontrollable. Becoming stronger has always been her heart's desire. Only by becoming stronger can you help the captain, and Mei understands this very well. You're welcome, you'll get stronger in the future, and as you get stronger, I seem to have some realizations in my heart. When Mei Yi was promoted to the S rank, Arthur had something inexplicable in his heart. It seems to be a perception of Kendo. Really? Captain? Mei Yi's eyes burst into a light of surprise. Yes. Receiving Arthur's clear reply, Mei smiled happily. Mei is really happy to be able to help the captain, and she is very happy. Then let's test what we can learn from each other this time. Arthur said as he saw a long knife appear in his hand. Plasma Shadow Show. The blade is dark blue. Only the hilt has a hollowed out black. Each attack carries an ice element, which has a tiger-like effect on Arthur, who is in control of the ice at this time. In stores, the price of this long knife is 3 billion. Okay Captain, Mei Yi won't show mercy. A mischievous smile appeared on Mei Yi's face. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 25. Inside the White Dragon, there is an exclusive training room. The two figures were intertwined with each other, surrounded by sword chi, and the sound of weapons colliding was endless. And beside her, Rita watched it all with a smile on her face. Captain, you're making so fast. The figures of the two staggered, and Mei Yi turned to look at Arthur with an incredulous look in her eyes. As soon as they fought, Mei Yi could feel that Arthur really didn't know how to use swordsmanship, and in the face of her attacks, he only relied on his physical instinct. However, as the time of the fight was extended backwards, Mei Yi was surprised to find. Between the swings of Arthur's sword, there were more traces of his moves. Moreover, she used exactly the moves she mastered. The moves are the same, but the feeling of the explosion is completely different. If Mei Yi's attack is swift and fast, then Arthur's attack is full of coldness. Each attack seems to freeze space. This is the Plasma Shadow Show, the ability of this long sword, which can unconsciously attract the ice element in Arthur's body. Let Arthur control it more subtly. I also feel that as I fought with you, I became more and more familiar with the use of the sword, as if I had always done the same, but I had forgotten it, and now I think about it. A flash of inspiration flashes in my mind, and every collision will burst out with new insights, which makes people can't help but want to continue exploring. Shaking the long knife in his hand, Arthur whispered to Mei Yi. Let's go ahead and see how far we can go. Okay, Captain. The battle continued, and as time went on, Arthur felt more and more at home. Drink. Bang. A powerful force burst out, mixed with a cold snap. A layer of ice gradually spread over the walls of the training room, getting thicker and heavier. AHH. Mei Yi only felt a cold aura invade her body along the blade, and her whole body couldn't help but shiver, and the rhythm of the attack was instantly disrupted. The force made her retreat and crash into a warm embrace. Looking up, Arthur was looking at him with a smile on his face. Captain, I'm sorry, Mei Yi let you down. Mei Yi's expression was a little downcast. It's okay, Mei Yi, you're already great, let's take a rest first. It's been half a day, and the captain didn't take your body into account. No, it's Mei Yi. It's too weak. The joy of being strong has now disappeared, and Mei Yi understands that she is still too weak. He didn't even have the strength to let the captain fight him to his heart's content. Okay, don't be so depressed, it won't be beautiful, rest for a while and have dinner, the improvement of strength will not happen overnight. Arthur patted Mei Yi's little head lightly and pulled her out of the training room. Without Arthur's presence, the ice in the training room gradually melted. After dinner, Arthur stood on the deck and stretched hard. Feeling the sea breeze blowing in, I squinted my eyes slightly. For the tranquility of this moment, Arthur enjoyed it very much. Behind him, a body approached and gently hugged him. Based on the size and the smell that wraps around the tip of the nose, you can guess who is coming instantly. What's wrong, Rita? Did you miss me? A smile tugged at the corners of his mouth, and his hands were clasped on his stomach. Yes, Captain, Rita misses you so much. The head rubbed against her back, and Rita murmured lowly. Don't move, that's fine, let Rita hug her. Hearing Rita's words, Arthur's attempt to turn around immediately stopped and returned to his original position. Just stood quietly. Mei Yi stood aside, and she couldn't bear to disturb the beautiful scene at the moment. But it's just that the heavens are not beautiful. Do you want to join my pirates? In the distance, a sailboat sailed towards this direction, and before it could get close, a hearty voice was already heard. Being disturbed, Arthur clearly felt that the temperature around him had dropped a lot. Rita. Feeling the release of his hands, Arthur couldn't help but turn his head. Captain, please wait for Rita, for a while. Although Rita was laughing, the smile made people cold. Looking at the pirate ship that was still approaching, a cold light flashed in his eyes. Today, I finally came to the interest of having a heart-to-heart exchange with the captain, but I was interrupted. Unforgivable. With one step, the armor around the body emerges. Blue Knight, Moon Soul. It seems that Rita is indeed very angry. With a slight jump, the nimble body crossed a distance of tens of meters and landed on the opposite pirate ship. Waves of energy fluctuation suddenly spread outward from the pirate ship. Captain. May came to Arthur's side worriedly. Don't worry, Rita is fine. There are very few people on the sea who can do harm to Rita. That pirate flag. Some are familiar. Looking at the fluttering pirate flag above, Arthur's eyes showed a thoughtful look. 10 minutes later, Rita returned unscathed and landed next to Arthur, her armor dissipating at the same time. And the pirate ship also changed direction and gradually moved away. How about Rita? The other party still has some strength, and wants to invite us to join their pirate group, and the name seems to be Rogers. Rita said unconcernedly. Joining the pirates naturally refused to face. After a fight, there was a lot of anger in my heart, so Rita accepted it when she saw it. After all, Hyperion flies in the sky, and it is too foul to appear on the sea, and I have not considered it at the moment, maybe it will appear later. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 26. You mean his name is Roger? Arthur looked at the pirate ship that was gradually moving away, and his eyes slowly moved to Rita. Yes, what's wrong, Captain? Rita's expression was a little puzzled, and she tilted her head slightly, puzzled. Forget it, it's not too much of a problem. Arthur shook his head. In this most chaotic period of the sea, I don't know what kind of changes Roger's appearance will bring, which is really full of expectations. Oh, by the way, Rita, did you see anyone else on that boat? Now that Roger has arrived, he will inevitably gather some companions, but the battle just now did not find any other energy fluctuations. Nope. There's only one guy named Roger. Rita shook her head, leaving Arthur slightly startled. Is that so? Arthur rubbed his chin and nodded slightly thoughtful. Captain, you're so strange today. Is it? Rita said this, with a sly look in her eyes, and she knew at a glance that she was brewing some bad idea. Sure enough. Rita leaned over lightly and whispered. Could it be that the captain has been interested in men lately? Arthur couldn't help but give Rita a blank look, and turned to walk towards the cabin. Rita and May glanced at each other, covered their mouths and chuckled, and walked in one after the other. Meanwhile, Roger, who was on the pirate ship, looked at the white dragon that turned into a small white dot in the distance. There are really strong people in the sea, and I just met a person with such strength. Standing at the stern of the boat, with the cloak behind him hunting, Roger had an excited glint in his eyes. That's what he wants. Rivals on equal footing, full of arduous journeys, in search of soulmates. It's just a pity that I declined my invitation. There was some disappointment in Roger's tone, he shook his head helplessly, and drove forward slowly. In the distance, a lonely island emerges. At the edge of the island, a man sat without hesitation, a bonfire burning in front of him, and a few fish slowly turning beside him. From time to time, some spices are sprinkled on top of the grilled fish, which gives off an attractive aroma. The first member of the Roger Pirates, named Silbaz Riley. He has short blonde hair and a tough face. As if he felt something, he looked up at the approaching ship in the distance. Yo Roger, how did you get so embarrassed when you went out? Looking at Roger, who had leapt off the deck, Riley looked up and down, a smile curling into his mouth. Compared to when he went out, Roger's clothes were indeed a little messy. After all, the battle with Rita was not so easy, but it definitely not reached the level of embarrassment. I got into a fight with someone else. Roger waved his hand indifferently, sat down by the campfire, picked up the grilled fish that was being grilled, and took a bite. I don't seem to be particularly happy with your tone. Did you lose the fight? Riley was curious. If he had met an opponent in the past, Roger would have been eager to tell him all the details of what had happened. How to? Today. I didn't lose, I just got to the point. Subsequently, Roger explained in detail the situation of his going to sea. It's really interesting, and I'm so interested to meet those people for a while. Riley said as he picked up the grilled fish in front of him and ate it. Yes, if you want, we'll come back in a while, and it would be nice to have them join our pirates. Roger hasn't given up yet. Is that also your intuition? The light in Riley's eyes grew brighter. Riley had a deep understanding of Roger's intuition, and it seemed that he had been brought on board like this in the first place. Yes, my instincts have always been accurate, and those people give me a strong premonition. Roger's gaze was a little deep. So do you have a gut idea what we're going to face next? Saying Riley's gaze, Roger looked into the distance. A pirate ship was heading towards them, and on the deck, many pirates were armed with weapons in their hands, and it was obvious that they were not good at coming. It's them again, the last time I let them go, they chased after them. Roger stood up from the ground, moving his whole body slightly, a smile cracking into the corners of his mouth. How about we compete to see who has more to beat? Seeing Roger's gaze, Riley smiled and ate all the grilled fish in his hand with 3 strikes and 5 divisions. No problem, I have to win in the end. The two glanced at each other and stood on the shore, quietly waiting. At least it will be written to the shelves. As for whether to write it after that, it depends on the subscription results. It's not very demanding as long as it's not in the normal range. I'll continue to write €. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 27. On the White Dragon, Arthur sat on the couch, looking through the items in the store. It's also something he often likes to do in his free time. There are many items in the store, and although there are categories, they are only general categories, and there are many that are not divided in detail. Therefore, it is not uncommon to see some interesting gadgets, which is also the fun of visiting the store. What the hell is Dragon Ball? One is worth $1 trillion, why don't you grab it? Away 18 style, a full set of 30 million, this price is still not expensive, but it doesn't seem to be of much use to me. There are still a lot of weird things. Are there any devil fruits and domineering or anything like that? In this world of pirates, having a devil fruit or domineering is the proof of a strong man. And the overlord domineering Arthur has long coveted it. After all, he is so handsome. This is also the motivation to check the store frequently. As a result, after a few days, the items in the store were only seen in the ocean. Wait, like I've found something interesting. The object that flashed quickly in front of him, Arthur stopped instantly, and slowly pulled upward. A row of domineering appeared in front of Arthur. The primary armament is domineering, and the price is 100 million. The mid-level armed color is domineering, and the price is 1 billion. The high-level armed color is domineering, and the price is 10 billion. The top armed color is domineering, and the price is 100 billion. In addition to the armed color domineering, there is also the domineering color of seeing and hearing, the overlord color domineering, and the price of each stage is the same. Sure enough, it's an almighty store. Is there really a domineering sale, and the primary one only needs 100 million? The corners of Arthur's mouth hooked up a smile. 100 million is still out for him now. Let's buy a beginner armed color domineering to test the waters. Armed and domineering, Arthur has also been yearning for a long time. After all, it can increase the hardness. Click buy directly, and the goods will automatically enter the system warehouse. Open the system warehouse, see the glowing mass of items, and click use. Armed color. Raised his right arm and clenched his fist slightly, and the armed domineering color covered the entire arm. It's true that the sensory power has increased a bit. After feeling it carefully, Arthur nodded in satisfaction. Armed color. Armed color. Armed color. After many uses, I have become more and more proficient, and I can attach it to various parts of the body at will. Captain, what fun have you found on your own? Seeing Arthur dancing there alone, Rita walked over with a smile. Wow, Captain, why did your arm turn black? Seeing the armed color attached to her arm, Mei stared at her big eyes in surprise, and couldn't help but reach out and touch it gently. The touch, as if it was steel, made Mei's brow furrow. This is domineering, it can increase attack and defense. Do you want it? Arthur asked, waving his fist. Unexpectedly, Rita and Mei shook their heads again and again. I don't want it to be so ugly. Rita doesn't need to. Although it can increase a certain amount of strength, the thought that a certain part of his body will become pitch black, instinctively refuses. Well, that's just the icing on the cake. Arthur shrugged his shoulders and approached Rita with a smile on his face. Captain, with such an expression on your face, do you have any bad ideas in mind? Rita still knows Arthur very well. How so? I just wanted to try this armed domineering with you. Arthur looked at Rita with a wicked smile. If Rita heard me right, the captain just said that this armed color domineering can increase the hardness of any part of the body, right? Rita's good-looking eyebrows furrowed, and she had already guessed Arthur's thoughts in her heart. What? Are you scared? The smile on Arthur's lips became a little thicker. Armed color domineering, since he bought it, he naturally wanted to give it a try. Captain, steel can be sharpened into needles, don't think that adding a hard shell will make the world invincible. In the face of Arthur's provocation, Rita fought back, not to be outdone. It's a mule or a horse, you have to walk it to know, don't cry and beg for mercy at that time. You're the captain, a man can't give up halfway and surrender in advance. Between the two of them, there seemed to be sparks flickering. May watched from the side, her eyes looking at Rita and Arthur, not knowing whose side to stand on. Captain, Sister Rita, there's someone out there. Suddenly, through the window, a sailboat was approaching, and May hurriedly shouted. Arthur and Rita looked out at the same time. It's Roger, why is he back again? I was a little puzzled. Rita, it's useless to talk too much now, wait for a real fight in a while, and you'll know who is talking big. I'm looking forward to it. Rita is also looking forward to it. How much will the captain's combat power increase with this hard shell? The two of them walked out of the cabin and stood on the deck, looking at the capsized ship docked not far away. What's the matter, Roger, do you want to come back to the field? Seeing Roger appear, Arthur was the first to speak. No, 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 I'm here to invite you to join our pirates. Roger waved his hand repeatedly, maintaining a kind smile. Join your pirates. I've had people who have asked for this, but I've declined. And I have the same answer for you. I refuse. The attitude is resolute, so that Roger's later words are not easy to say. I wonder which pirate group invited you last time. Seeing Roger's speechless look, Riley spoke. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself, my name is Riley, Silbaz Riley. As Riley spoke, his eyes looked at Arthur, Rita, and May. Even if he didn't have the ability to see people's hearts, Riley knew the strength of the three people in front of him. Especially that woman. Riley's gaze rested heavily on Rita. With a smile on the outside, harmless to humans and animals, but the depth of his eyes made him feel a little frightened. The silence in the depths of his eyes seemed to freeze everything in. The Rocks Pirates. Hearing Riley's self-introduction, Arthur nodded knowingly. Riley and Roger glanced at each other. The famous Locks Pirates that shocked the sea, the two of them naturally knew. Since even the Rocks Pirates can refuse, their pirate ship that has just gone to sea is naturally not eye-catching. I have given up on the intention of inviting in my heart. However, since they have come, they have come. If we are unmoved by the invitation of the Rocks Pirates, then we will not be bored. It's just that I heard that everyone on your ship is very strong, so I want to ask for advice. Riley's gaze looked at Arthur. Who is the captain of the ship can be seen by the position. So you just want to fight? Then let's get started, I have important things to do in the future. The idea of upgrading the ship is okay, and it will be added to it later depending on the situation. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 28. Then let's get started. I have important things to do. Arthur finished speaking and glanced around. Around the two ships, the endless sea, eyebrows raised. Looks like this isn't a good place to fight, how about finding an island? No, I said there are still very important things to do. In response to Riley's proposal, Arthur waved his hand. Since you can't use your hands and feet, let's create a field. Manufacturing site, this. Riley didn't understand what Arthur meant by what he said, and he felt the temperature around him drop instantly. Freeze. A soft whisper came from his mouth, and in Arthur's palm, a cold current shot into the sea. Click, click. Under the gaze of everyone, the sea gradually froze and spread outward. Spread in an instant. In the distance, the bodies of the sea kings who had just jumped out of the sea glittered in the sunlight like elaborately carved statues. Good fellow, is it a devil fruit capable of nature? It feels tricky. Riley looked at the frozen sea with a deep look of surprise in his eyes. Natural devil fruits are also strong and weak, and in this moment, the area that freezes like a small island is definitely at the apex. Haha Roger, our opponent seems to be a little too strong. Riley said half-jokingly, but his eyes were full of fighting spirit. This is the excitement of meeting a strong person. Rita, I'll leave it to you, let them make the trip worthwhile. Understood, Captain. Rita nodded, watching as Riley swung his right hand and a huge scythe emerged. At the same time, pieces of armor appeared all around the body. Blue Knight, Moon Soul. Since the captain gave the order, Rita naturally did not disappoint the visitor. And Arthur's eyes looked at Roger, and in his right hand, a long knife emerged, and the cold air permeated his body. Roger, let me be your opponent. At this moment, in the face of the future One Piece, Arthur is also full of fighting spirit. Okay, ha ha ha. The entire battlefield centered on the white dragon, which was split into two in an instant. Mei Yi stood on the deck of the white dragon, with a look of gloom in her worried eyes. Didn't fight alongside the captain. Mei Yi has some small loss in her heart. Holding the plasma shadow show, the sunlight around Arthur became icy. What you get from Rita is the power of pure ice. How far it can be played depends on Arthur's own use. Bang bang bang. Arthur and Roger were still looking at each other, and Rita and Riley on the other side were already fighting. Facing Rita, Riley is still barehanded, with the blessing of armed color and seeing and hearing color, even Rita can't help it for a while. So this is the color of the armament? Sure enough, the hardness has increased a lot, which really makes Rita look forward to it. After a short fight, Rita already knew the ability of armed color. Said something that made Riley a little baffled. Being able to predict my movements in advance should be what the captain said about seeing and hearing domineering. Like a child who has found a new toy, Rita learns a lot from the battle with Riley. Speaking of which, this should be Rita's first real showdown with the masters of this world. When he faced the Rocks pirates, he only broke out the strongest blow and turned around and left. After that, there will be no chance, and even if they do, they are just some small minions. The attack is sharp, but it is pointless if you don't attack. Riley is confident in what he's seen. Really? A smile curled up at the corner of Rita's mouth, her body soared into the air, and behind the slowly raised scythe, a huge phantom image appeared. What is this? Dangerous feelings. Riley's gaze became solemn, and the blow was no small deal. On the other side, after a brief look, Arthur and Roger shot at the same time. Roger drew the sword from his waist and collided with Arthur's sword. Powerful power spreads outward with the two of them as the center. Click, click. However, where the two swords intersected, the ice gradually coalesced. Seeing this, Roger immediately launched a second attack. Arthur's moves and styles carried the power of ice that even Roger did not dare to touch. Each collision was extremely brief and swift. Roger's attacks are mainly strong, and each blow carries the momentum of opening the mountain and breaking the mountain, as well as the power of domineering. God avoids. The two of them retreated with a single touch, and as soon as they landed, Roger immediately launched a one-hit attack. All the forces converged and rushed forward. The hard ice was too hard to withstand the force and was knocked out of a ravine. A strong blow, but this is my home turf. In the face of the impending attack, Arthur raised his hands in the air. The ice in front of him instantly rose from the ground, forming a high wall several meters thick. Bang! It can be clearly seen that a stream of energy passed through the ice wall and rushed towards Arthur at a great speed. It's just that the speed has slowed down a little bit after passing through the ice wall. Then taste my blow. The long sword in his hand was raised high, and the endless cold aura condensed into a huge sword shadow. Brush. Straight down. The whole world seemed to be reduced to two halves under this blow. The attacking attack that rushed straight out only lasted for less than a second under this sharp sword light, and exploded with a bang. Roger tilted his head back and smiled at the face of the attack like heavenly punishment. The armament color is attached to the long sword without any dodge. Bang. Boom. With Roger as the center, layers of cold ice exploded, and thousands of huge waves rose and swept around, and they did not subside for a long time. The huge waves that rushed into the sky fell and the area felt like it had experienced a storm. Under the illumination of the sun, a rainbow appeared. It's such a strong attack, and the cold contained in it is directly against the human body. Roger's right hand holding the knife was not only trembling a little, it was covered with a layer of ice, which gradually melted away after a long time. And just then, Riley's voice was heard in the distance. Don't fight, your ability is too foul. Riley felt aggrieved. Rita had this layer of ice around him, and once he stepped into it, his strength and speed would be greatly limited. Especially the ubiquitous cold, if you are not careful, you will be hit, making him extremely aggrieved. Roger, let's stop here today. If you continue to fight, you may really lose face. Riley gave up the fight, and Rita didn't pursue, slowly falling from mid-air. Okay, that's all for today. Roger took a deep breath, sheathed his long knife, and looked at Arthur. Hopefully we'll have a chance to play each other in the future. In the future, I guess you won't even be able to catch one of my moves. Arthur wasn't talking big, now just the ability of swordsmanship and ice is on par with Roger, and he will get more abilities in the future. Moreover, this battle is only the beginning. If the battle is prolonged, Arthur has a 70% chance of winning. I'm looking forward to seeing each other next time. Roger and Riley are gone, much to Arthur's relief. Fighting, killing is really not what he likes. Captain. Rita walked over and hugged Arthur's right arm with a tender gaze. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 29. Riley, you look really embarrassed. On the pirate ship, Roger and Riley sat cross-legged, looked at each other and couldn't help laughing. At this moment, Riley's whole body was wet, like a chicken in soup. You're not any better than me. Riley glared at Roger angrily, then the expression on his face converged, and his brow furrowed tightly. Roger, did you notice? That woman was using strange moves. To this day, he still has a strong interest in the realm around Rita. It's the first time I've encountered it, and it's not like the power of a devil fruit. Indeed, although the strength is not very strong, the swordsmanship is exquisite, and the most important thing is the cold energy contained in each attack, which is difficult to guard. Roger thought of his battle with Arthur, and scenes flashed through his mind. If Arthur's last blow can be used continuously, I am afraid that he has a good chance of failure. Even the armed colors could not withstand the invasion of the cold air, which is enough to prove how terrifying it is. The huge scythe was so sharp that you could still feel the sharpness of it, and it looked like it was going to break. Riley shook his arms as he spoke. It's not so easy to fight Rita's weapons with flesh and blood. There are 12 supreme fast knives, 21 big fast knives, and 50 good fast knives, among which there is no of scissor-shaped weapons. Riley's mind was full of doubts. Not only is it powerful, but the weapons are also weird. Indeed, that weapon is strong. Roger nodded in agreement, as if a cold light flashed in front of him. You can freeze space and cut everything. The long knife that looks ordinary has brought him unimaginable suppression. Every time he collided, the cold air would invade along the long sword, making him distract some of his energy. Wait, the two of us don't seem to be talking the same thing. The two asked and answered, but Riley became confused. Why does it feel that something is wrong? Roger stood up from the ground and looked ahead. We need to be in awe of the sea. Riley stood next to Roger, and the two looked at each other, but neither spoke. In his mind, he was thinking about his opponent, and his fists clenched slightly. They are also looking forward to the next meeting. The next day. Early morning. Mei Yi tidied up everything and came to the living room, and glanced around, with some surprise in her eyes. Normally, at this time, Rita has already begun to prepare breakfast. How can I not find anyone today? Haven't you gotten up yet? Mei Yi suddenly remembered something, tiptoed to the door of Rita's room, and gently pushed it. A crack opened in the door. Carefully poke out your little head. Sure enough. SHHH. Arthur, who heard the movement, hurriedly reminded in a whisper. Got it, Captain. Mei Yi also lowered her voice and walked over quietly. Even when I fell asleep, I couldn't hide the tiredness on my face, and there was a faint sweat spread on my cheeks. Sister Rita, what's wrong? It's the first time I've seen Rita like this. It's okay, it's just out of strength, and I'll recover after a while. Arthur shook his head, wiped the sweat off Rita's cheeks, and whispered with some reproach. Let you be so reckless, now you have to suffer. With the armament color applied, Arthur's combat power skyrocketed. At first, Rita was able to spend a few rounds with him, but after a while, she could only defend passively. But it was only for a while, and any defense was broken down by Arthur. This has led to the current situation. This made Arthur understand that it is generally better not to attach to the armed color domineering, and the combat effectiveness is enhanced, but letting Rita suffer is against the original intention. In that case, let's make today's breakfast by Mei Yi. Thank you for your hard work. It's okay, Captain. Mei Yi shook her head and said with some twist. If she could, Mei would also like the captain to be stronger. Speaking of which, Mei Yi seemed to be afraid that Arthur would misunderstand something, and her hands waved back and forth. No, 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 Mei is not saying that it's bad for the captain to be gentle, it's just that. It's just been a long time, and Mei Yi didn't say why, only left a sentence. Mei Yi went to cook, and ran out with the smoke. Alas. Looking at Mei Yi who ran out, Arthur shook his head helplessly. Unexpectedly, Rita slept like this and didn't wake up until noon. When I opened my eyes, I saw Arthur next to him showing a faint smile. The captain's stomach was used as a pillow, and he slept very comfortably. As he spoke, he couldn't help arching and finding a comfortable position. It's time to get up, it's already noon. Seeing that Rita didn't want to move, Arthur patted her on the head gently. Is it so late? The captain carried me to the bathroom. Rita said with her arms outstretched, smiling like a young lady next door. The usual calmness, wisdom can no longer see the slightest. Okay, let me serve you well today. After washing up and eating lunch, the time has already come to the afternoon. On the deck, Arthur slowly moved his body to relieve the fatigue of his joints. Captain, where are we going next? At this time, Rita has recovered to her original state, and her whole body exudes a more seductive charm. Let the eyes of Mei Yi next to her reveal envy. Go to the West Sea. This time, Arthur had a clear goal. Because there is a lot of wealth buried under the ice continent of the Western Sea. Captain, there's a warship in the distance. May pointed ahead, and there was a warship speeding towards here in the distance, and the goal was clear. It turned out to be him. Seeing the people on the warship, Arthur raised his eyebrows. Don't want to waste any more time. Arthur took out the plasma shadow show and swept out in front of him. Brush. On the calm surface of the sea, a layer of waves is lifted. The waves that jumped high gradually condensed into ice, blocking the White Dragon and the warship. Let's go. They won't be able to get over for a while. After doing all this, Arthur waved his right hand, and the long sword in his hand disappeared. Okay, Captain, let's set off for the West Sea. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, return Captain. Chapter 30. Damn Arthur pirates, don't run if you have the ability. Seeing the wall of ice spanning miles in front of him, Zifa stood on the deck, his whole body trembling. Armament color hardening. The entire right arm was attached to it, and the body rose into the air after a pause. The power converged in his right fist and blasted out in front of him. Bang! The entire wall of ice trembled violently under the bombardment of the powerful force. Click, click, click. With Zifa's fist as the center, cracks spread like spider webs in all directions. Boom! The ice in front of him exploded and sank into the sea. And Zifa has already returned to the warship with the force of this counter-shock. Looking ahead, there was only a small dot left on the White Dragon, and it disappeared in a blink of an eye. Chase! Zifa waved his hand, and the warship started again. Arthur was only driving at a normal speed, browsing the scenery along the way, and soon encountered again under Zifa's full pursuit. Captain, the Navy is catching up again. Seeing Zifa, who was chasing after him, Rita still admired his persistence. It just so happened that something funny suddenly came to mind. Seeing Zifa on the warship in the distance, the anger on his face could be clearly seen, and the corners of Arthur's mouth hooked up a smile, and his two fingers gently rubbed his chin. For example, how long can this warship last under the attack of the Titans? As soon as he said and did, Arthur immediately went to the stern of the ship and took a Titan out of the warehouse. Attack every 10 seconds, so let's start now. After setting the instructions, Arthur stood aside and prepared to watch the play. Red light gradually emanated from the Titan's pitch-black pupils, and his upright body squatted downward, and the barrel of the cannon on his body emerged, forming a turret. Bang bang bang. Shells were fired. What's that? Zifa, who was standing on the deck, saw a few small red dots approaching quickly, fixed his eyes, and suddenly his face changed, and he roared. Dodge! Boom, boom. One after another, the shells exploded next to the warship, and the huge waves set off on the ship, making the whole warship shake incessantly. Finally, when the warship calmed down, several shells came in the distance. It's still here. On this warship, Zifa's strength could not be exerted, so he could only passively dodge, not to mention how aggrieved he was. Prepare the artillery and launch a counterattack. One cannon after another was pushed onto the deck, aimed at the oncoming shells. Bang bang bang. Cannonballs flew out and met in mid-air. Boom, boom. The sound of explosions was incessant, and they were all in one piece. Look what else you have. See this scene. Zifa breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. This time, in order to hunt down Arthur, Zifa was fully prepared, and he was not afraid of even a war of attrition. And yet, Major General Zifa. Above. A frightened voice came from the side, and Zifa looked up, his eyes instantly widening. I may. Cannonballs fell from the sky like stars in the sky. Boom, boom. Under the dense rain of artillery, the warship was torn apart and sank into the sea. On the stern of the White Dragon, Arthur put away the 4 titans on either side. Compare firepower with him. Hee, sample. Let's go, this time they can't chase it at all. Behind, on the wreckage of the warship drifting on the sea, Sci-fi watched the back of the White Dragon in the distance, and smashed it into the sea with a fierce fist. Another failed pursuit. The direction in which they are going is. Forcibly suppressing the anger in his heart, looking at the direction in which the White Dragon was leaving, Sci-fi seemed to think of something. It's good that the phone bug is fine. Looking at the phone bug on his arm, Sci-fi immediately contacted the nearby Naval Branch support. 3 days later, Arthur and his party finally arrived in the West Sea. In the living room, it was the long-awaited lottery time. Last time it was all character shards, and hopefully this time it will be the same. All the characters that were drawn before were character shards, and Arthur thought about it too. Probably because of the weights. Before Mei came out, all the things that were drawn were varied. And after Mei came out, the probability of drawing Mei's character fragments increased a lot, and correspondingly, the probability of drawing other ones decreased a lot. If that's the case, it may be much faster than you think to get to the top. Click 10 links. The familiar interface resurfaced. I've seen this scene many times, but each time it gives Arthur a different feeling. The mystery and vastness of the universe made him feel his own insignificance clearly when he was in it. In the face of such a vast system as the universe, individuals are like motes. 10 rays of light appeared in front of him, and the items contained within made Arthur smile. Sure enough, it was just as he had guessed. 7 of the 10 items are character shards for Mei, and the other 3 are Titan mechs. This harvest can be said to be very rich. Character shards A29. Titan mecha A3. Mei's promotion from S rank to S rank requires 50 character shards, compared to 34/50ths at this point. At the current pace, the next replenishment of character shards will be completely sufficient. Captain, we've arrived at our destination, which direction are we heading next? Mei walked over and asked softly. Turn on the White Dragon's probe and turn it up to maximum power to detect gold, there's a treasure here. Okay, Captain. Mei nodded and immediately executed. The White Dragon's probe was opened, and the range could be summarized within a radius of nearly 100 miles. Arthur didn't have a clear goal, so he just wandered around the Western Sea. After about 2 days, the detector finally emitted a DIDI prompt. Captain, found, a lot of metal reactions. Looking at the screen in front of him, Arthur nodded. That's right, that's it, full speed ahead. With the goal, it only takes about 10 minutes to reach the destination. The weather here doesn't seem to be very cold, how can there be a frozen continent? Seeing the endless ice field in front of her, Rita had some doubt in her eyes. Maybe it's just a lot of work done by nature. After parking the White Dragon, Arthur leapt off the deck and stood on the ice. Keep your head down and look down. You can faintly see the alluring glow of a large amount of gold in the depths of the ice. The West Sea, the continent of ice, is where hundreds of billions of wealth are buried.